Hey guys, welcome to episode 5 of season 4 of the Hello Church podcast. My name's David Krausen.
My name's Mike Hernandez.
Man, we're excited to have you on this episode. Yeah, welcome back again. We've been on a journey. We talked about in episode 1, growing a small church.
Yes.
Why it matters.
Why it's important. Right?
Ways to do it, ways to think about it a little bit differently. We talked about in episode 2, leading a small church through change. That can be difficult for any size church.
That's right. It's inevitable. Changes everywhere. It's coming.
But doing it right in a healthy way in a smaller church is important. Lessons we've learned and
some of the barriers.
Yeah,
some of the barriers.
Yeah, episode 3, we talked about problems a smaller church pastor would face, internal problems.
Really. Wait, we got problems?
No,
we don't have problems.
Nobody has
Pastors
problems.
don't have problems.
Pastors
That's
are
not
the least. No, they've got God, no problem.
Man, we expose some real things that we deal with as pastors.
like internal things, struggles,
exactly.
right?
Stuff in the mind. That's right.
Stuff you don't even really think is a problem, but it is. It's hindering you in lots of ways. And then one of my favorite episodes, episode 4, we talked about resources. Like communication resources and preaching resources and techie stuff. We like.
That's
what
our
would
thing.
you call it? A technophile? Is that the right word?
I don't know.
But I
love
if
technology.
that's a bad thing, I don't know.
I love
but we do love
technology. Y'all don't even know that reference. Anyways.
Oh man, don't hate yourself,
I
Mike.
did a reference on Sunday morning to Nacho Libre.
Yes, one of my favorite movies.
And my entire congregation was like crickets.
They didn't know.
We were doing baptisms. I'm like, you've not been baptized? And yeah, as funny as that was, my whole church was like, crickets.
No.
I was like, okay, that was a joke. All right, I gotta.
And they thought you were just being racially offensive.
Bro, they had no clue. It was so funny. Anyways,
my last name
I love
is
technology.
Hernandez.
That's from Napoleon Dynamite.
That's funny.
Got to explain. When you got to explain a joke, it's not funny anymore.
If you have to tell people how to laugh.
Bro, I did a G.I. Joe joke too. I was like, hey, annoying is half the, and again, cricket. So I got to up my game. I guess that's all it means.
Now, you have an old crowd or a young crowd?
Bro, it's a mixture. You got young people and old people, and still nobody was like, crickets.
Done. Not even funny.
Yeah, not even funny.
That makes you like.
We're gonna do a whole episode on bad jokes and don't do these jokes.
Yeah, don't tell these jokes. Yeah, or test them in front of an audience first.
That's right.
No, you do 2 services. So first audience was the test service.
Yeah,
right?
and first audience was okay. Like they kind of got it.
That this is
second's
gonna get it.
It just got worse throughout the day. I thought it would get better, and it didn't. No, second service was done. They're like, no,
That's disappointing.
We don't care about your jokes.
I'm not a comedian. You're a pastor. Preach. Just read the Bible.
That's right. Just read the Bible.
Stick to the Bible. So today, we're not talking about any of those things. Nope. We're talking about something that you probably do it without thinking.
Yes.
When you wake up in the morning, Mike, what do you do? What is a process? We're talking about that. Systems and processes.
Systems, routines, processes.
Boring. Boring.
Man,
it's not. You do them mindlessly.
Exactly.
What do you do when you wake up?
Yeah, man, being an aging person, I'll just say that. I'm not 20 anymore. So first thing I'm doing is maybe going to the restroom, trying to check that out.
Potty break.
Then I'm going to get coffee. You got to get coffee because that's how, and I'm not a coffee snob.
Okay.
So I do have a Keurig. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, see, you already knew. You already knew.
Come on, man.
I got the pods and I'm just not that, it's coffee.
Don't unsubscribe because he said that.
That's right. Please don't be offended at the whole team because of my sins, right? But I pop it in, drink some coffee. I do a thing called First 15, 5 minutes prayer, 5 minutes word, 5 minutes in worship, and it just revs me up. And it's staple, like every morning.
You just know.
That's right.
I'm doing these things.
I got a meeting. I got to get up early enough to do that, and I schedule myself. It's a routine. It's what I do.
Sure. I mean, even like making a cup of coffee in the morning for me, that's there's a process for that.
There's a process.
We
see mine is lift, stick, stop. It's done. You got a whole process.
Yeah. So we grind the beans, and all that stuff, and pop it in the portafilter, and we brew fresh espresso, and then we're steaming milk and doing the whole thing, and that's a process.
See, just like Nacho Libre went over that goes over my head.
Done.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, coffee.
But it's your routine. You got it.
That's a routine. It's a process.
Sure.
You have them in your church.
That's right.
You're probably doing some of these things already without even thinking about it, guest follow-up and accounting processes, online giving, however you batch process. All that kind of stuff is happening, but have you written it down or have you just given somebody or yourself a job to do? Sure. Can someone else come in and do this thing or these things in your church without the person doing them now? Can it be repeated?
Right.
So we're going to talk about that.
And I bet you do know where you don't have systems because it's probably some of the biggest problem areas of the church.
Yeah, they stress you out. Right?
Exactly. They're the highest levels of anxiety. Who's going to do that? How do we process, And so if you don't have them, you have them because they happen, but you also know when you don't have them because it creates this
and everyone else
extra,
does too.
Exactly. It creates this extra anxiety. So we're diving into systems today.
Systems.
Processes. Yeah.
Let's go. What do we call this? Block one of our episode.
Yeah.
Why are systems important?
So let's talk about what a system is. And the best place to go,
briefly,
go Google the definition. And I found this one and I loved the way it explained just what a system is, right? It's a collection of interconnected components or elements that function together as a whole to achieve a specific goal. I know that's a lot of, but it's a lot of moving parts.
Slow the speed down to like half speed and write that down.
Components. Look, what it all means is that there's a lot of moving parts that are intentional, that are purposeful to accomplish a specific goal.
Happening on purpose.
That's a system.
Okay.
A lot of things happening for one reason, all happening for the same reason. Excuse me. So that's a system. And the cool thing is, whether you know anything about systems or not, we all have systems. Mm-hmm. We have a digestive system. Body. That's right.
Right.
We have a nervous system. So we are a people of systems.
Sure.
Right. Whether you understand it or not, but you do know this: if one of our systems was broken,
you'd be in the hospital.
We'd be in the hospital. Exactly. We know when a system is broken because it has an outward effect.
Sure.
Same in our church. One of the reasons why there could be a problem or issue is because a system is either non-existent or it's broken. That's usually where our fires are in our church.
Yeah. I mean, if you find that if one system in your body is broken, it can actually affect other systems.
There it is.
Right?
That's the beauty, the power, the trouble, all of it of systems.
It's like individual systems, but they all do work together as a greater system. And
because our goal is to reach the community with the gospel.
Right.
But if I don't have a system on how to do that, if I don't have a system of once they reached it all is interconnected, and it's all, if it falls apart, or if one system falls apart, it can affect everything else. Absolutely. They're all interconnected. And I love that.
So there's probably some stuff you're doing in your church right now, some tasks you've delegated to a person.
Yes.
And this person does this thing.
Right.
Fill in the blank, whatever that is in your church. Talk about that.
Yeah. I hear it over and over again. I've walked through this myself where, Sally is the lady. Hey, I want to get involved in a church. What do I do? Talk to Sally. And what happens if Sally's not there? What happens if Sally is sick that Sunday?
Sure.
What happens if it's a growing church and you're like, I don't know who Sally is?
Right. How do I find her?
How do I find her?
She got a sign above her head.
We always say that a single person is not a system. Sure. That's a person. Yeah. And that's a good indicator to know, do we have a system of follow-up? If you say, talk to Frank, talk to Mary. And I've been guilty of that where I'm like, that's not a system.
It feels natural to you because you're so ingrained in the culture of the church, right?
Sure,
and
exactly. I know Frank, I know Mary, I know he's got a good heart, she's got a good heart.
Yeah,
They're gonna help. But if I'm an outsider coming in, if I'm new to the church, they don't know these people. And so that tells me there's not a system, it's a person. And I always say a person is not a system. Now, a person could be running the system that you created, but they in themselves are not a system. Right. So we've got to check that right out the gate. Like if you're saying, well, I have a system for follow-up or a system for, post the altar or a system for kids check-in. And you're saying, it's a name, I would dare say it's not a system.
Sure.
And we're going to help try to create systems around, and we're going to talk about some really important systems that every church needs to have them. That's really important. All the vital systems that are just like our nervous system, our circular system. We're going to talk about some of that, but a system is not a person, and a person is not a system.
Yeah. I would dare say that a church cannot function at its highest level without systems.
I agree.
It comes back to the idea that we said in another episode about stewardship. God's given you people, God's given you money, He's given you a building. It's up to you to steward them, to prove worthy of more, right? Okay, you've done well with 1, I'll give you 2. Whatever you've done well with 10, I'll give you 100.
Right.
Let's go. Systems help you do that. Systems help you scale. Systems are repeatable. Systems empower people.
Yes.
Systems offer predictability.
Yes.
You don't have to recreate the wheel every time you sit down to do XYZ task.
Absolutely.
Somebody else can step in. A volunteer leaves your church. Well, a new one can just come right in and follow the system.
Yes.
So,
and what I love about systems is, and why we choose as a church to function in systems, is how many times you've been at the threshold where you're needing to change something in the church. We talked about leading change, right? And if what you have is a person and not a system, that's really personal when it comes to trying to change that or adjust this or fix this or rewrite this policy around. Yeah. If it's built around a person and not a system, it feels very personal.
Yeah.
Systems allow you to go,
I'm doing this,
exactly.
I'm doing whatever. Yeah.
Sally goes, well, you don't like me? It becomes very personal. But when it's a system, you can go, hey, we're tweaking the system, not you, where there's some things we want to add to this system or change about this system. And it takes away the personal, they don't like me or I'm not doing a good job. Systems allow you to adjust things in a way that it doesn't make it personal for the people involved in your ministry. When they know they're a part of it and they're a piece of it, not the whole thing.
Yeah, right.
The whole nursery doesn't fall apart because right. Now they know, okay, I'm a piece of this and I'm not the only, the sole thing about it. So that's why I love systems, is that it allows me to tweak things and not make it personal when we need to change something or address. So
sure.
Yeah. And it lowers the stress for me as a pastor.
Right.
It brings the anxiety down knowing that it's functioning.
You're addressing a process, not a person.
And it's working and it's functioning. It does lower my stress on Sunday morning when I'm walking in and I'm like, okay, well, who's turning the lights on and who's making sure the ACs are this and is the building clean? Well, when you've got a system for those things, I walk in with the most important thing on my mind, which is the gospel and preaching and teaching and pastoring people versus worrying about the building and the different ministries that are happening around me, because we've instituted and we've implemented systems. It will help you lower the anxiety, pastor, by implementing systems in ministry.
Yeah. If you're a church, less than 200, listening to this podcast and you're wanting to break some barriers, you're wanting to grow, get past the 50 mark or get past the 100 mark, get past the 200 mark, systems can help you do just that.
Yes, they are tools in your hand as a lead pastor to empower your people and accomplish the things that God has called you to do and for me to do as lead pastor.
Yeah,
so
I love that. Yeah. I love that. So, big question.
Yeah.
What systems?
Sure. Let's talk about some vital systems that I think every church should have in some way functioning.
Like if you just had the bare minimum.
Exactly.
You got to have these systems.
But you can system everything out, till you're blue in the face. And so we just want to talk about just some really important bits. So right out the gate, I would say you need a system as it relates to managing people. So whether that's a church management software, but you need a process by which when people fill out a guest card or sign up for a ministry, or you need some way that you're implementing those people into a process that you're following up with. So I call that our church management system. Who's putting in these cards after your weekend experience? What
happens after that?
Exactly. Who's checking up on the follow-up email? Like creating the system of people management. It's important.
Sure.
Because it's a stewardship thing, right? Again. God's like, I've given you these people. Yeah. What are you doing with them?
Let them slip through the cracks.
Yes.
Or somebody expressed interest in volunteering and no one ever followed up with them because there was no system in place.
Right.
They didn't go ask the right person or whatever.
Correct.
Go to the lobby and fill out the card or show up to the growth track class because there was no system to get them plugged into any of that. So you lost a good volunteer that felt unseen and said, well, just go to the next church.
Yes, because it's more than just first-time guest management we're talking about. We're talking about just overall people management.
Shepherding the flock.
Exactly.
Right? Like
they're moving from
they're
A to B. Yeah. They're in discipleship 101, 201, 301. Mm-hmm. How are you tracking that progress? Like you need a system that manages people and we gave you a great resource last episode.
The people management from Planning Center.
Exactly.
Man, great way to just see where your people are.
The metrics one that you talked about, like that church metric helps like you're managing those processes that you have. That's a system that you're not just going. I think Frank's done, with the Bible study and his process.
Yeah.
You
I'm not
have
sure
a
if you
system.
finished that or not? Yeah,
that's right. You have a system in place of managing the people in your church, and there's 100 tools out there to do this, but you got to have a system of tracking what progress your people are.
As simple as a spreadsheet and check mark. Like print, these are the steps we want to take people through. Let's talk about giving and finances. We think that's a pretty important process to have in place.
You cannot, in today's culture, not have a system for this.
Yeah.
The church, as we all know, is under microscopes all the time.
Sure.
We're looked at from the outside, that are we doing and handling everything well? If, the IRS shows up, we want to be good stewards and we're called to do everything with integrity. Mm-hmm. I think every church minimally needs a financial process and a system on how you collect the offering, how you count the offering,
what happens next.
All of the steps that needs to be a system where it's not the pastor and his wife That's how you get in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, we're a smaller church plant, and we do like the whole box in the back kind of thing.
Yes.
But after church, we've got somebody in our church who's designated. He knows where the key is.
That's a system.
He goes and gets it, and he taps one of our other team members on the shoulder, and they go to a place in our church.
Yep.
We're in a very small building, so they
Sure.
go to this special closet we've got. They lock the door when they count the offering, they document it, they both sign it, they put it in the bag.
Yes.
90% of our giving's online anyway, but when
Right.
it does come in,
As a system.
there's a process
That's
for
right.
it. And that gets left in a zipped bag with a key on it. And then
Yes.
our secretary grabs that and takes it home and handles it on Monday morning. It's a process,
That's
but
right.
if you don't have it written out and documented, like we know that this happens, write it down. It's repeatable. Mark's not here to grab the offering after church.
You can grab Sarah.
Anyone
Frank,
else
that's
can
right.
do this.
They can read the steps
We've
and
got
they
the
know
steps
exactly what's.
listed out. Just follow the steps. Do
That's a
1, 2,
system.
and 3. Sign, envelope, lock it.
If
done.
there's an area of our churches that we have to do the best at, it's in the area of our finances.
Sure.
People are trusting us. They're expecting that we're handling it well once it leaves their hands, that we're being good stewards of it. Not so much even in the budgeting side, but just how we're processing it.
Yeah.
And that
my
there's
credit
a
card's
system.
not laying around on a table
That's
somewhere
right.
on the back of an envelope for people to walk by and
because
see.
because when there's a system and something is done that's outside of that system, it's easily identifiable.
Yeah.
You can say, wait, that's not how we do it. Those problems that start to arise, you can catch them and they're easily identifiable
Right.
when
You can go
there's
back
a
and
system.
pinpoint 'em.
But if you're like, well, who does it? I don't know. So you see so-and-so grabbing the offering and you're like, is he supposed to? I
They're
don't know.
not supposed to be touching the money.
When there's a system. So there needs to be a giving and a finances. So giving would be like, you need a system in place for people tracking their donations. They're getting giving credit for that. And that you have a system in place to be able to track that accurately.
Yeah. We think another system you need to be having in your church right away is for volunteer management / onboarding,
Yes.
training. What do you do when someone says, I'm good at this, I'd like to help here?
Right.
What do you do?
Yeah. If you don't, you will dishonor the person who said, I'm interested in serving the ministry.
Absolutely.
Well, go talk to Mary. Well, they can't find Mary. And all of a sudden that just falls apart for them. And they don't feel like they can trust us with getting involved in ministry. We've burned them. And how many times does that happen? And under my leadership, more than I'd like to admit, it really does, until we created a system of onboarding our volunteers. And we're going to have an entire episode, and I love that, about volunteers. It's coming up. So stay tuned. We're going to have a great, we're going to dive deep into that idea of volunteer
that's going to be
management.
fun. Super obvious, I feel like.
Yeah.
But a lot of churches don't even think about it. I know they don't. I've been in a lot of churches, and I know we're going to be talking about kids check-in.
Okay. Yeah.
Kids check-in and that security of that and
Sure.
why it's important. That process needs to be established for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
For parents' peace of mind.
Right.
I'm walking in with my kid to a strange place with strange people.
Yes.
And I'm just supposed to leave them in a random room
Yes.
and walk away.
Yeah. No, not a chance.
Not in 2023.
No way.
That's tough.
Sure.
That's expecting a lot. Now, if they're super churched and
Right.
whatever, maybe they're cool with that. They feel like, oh, I know y'all have done your due diligence and I
Right.
trust you. But if you're not, I mean, even at kids' play places and things, you go and you check in and you get a label and they put a name on the back.
Sure.
And you know your kid's checked in and they can't leave without you showing a code. And
Yes.
that process needs to exist.
Yeah. And this to me is not a size of a church problem. Like, you don't do that when you get to 500.
No, because
I think-
technology is so affordable now.
Exactly.
A church of 50
Yes.
can use the Planning Center kids check-in thing for $14 or something.
Correct.
And buy a $100 label printer and use an iPad you've got laying around.
Right.
And
And
you
train
have a
some
kids
people
check-in
and
system.
train some people like to be there to watch it.
Yeah.
It is the culture we live in, that a safety system,
Yeah.
a kids check-in system.
Yeah.
It should be. That's why it's a vital system in this list,
Yeah.
because it should have been there the day you opened your church. And so if
Agreed.
you're an older church, that's we didn't have that. I highly suggest that this system of some kind of kids check-ins, safety and security protocols. Man, we live in a pretty dark world right now, and safety and security goes just beyond kids. I think there needs to be a safety system, a security system for things like active shooter and things like, emergency response, tornadoes, if you live in that kind of part of the world, like, know where you're at.
When the power goes out.
Exactly. Yeah. This is a very real for us. Several months ago that happened. Sunday morning, power goes out. There's doing a ton of construction by our church. Wasn't the weather. So it wasn't like we were prepared. Okay, let's get ready for that. It was out of the blue. And I'm so thankful we have a process for this. Kids all came to this area where the light is. We have a storefront, so it was lit up in the front. Parents did. I mean, it was a system. Our safety team responded. And I'm not, as a pastor, going, close the doors, burn the house. It wasn't panic mode. Everybody knew what to do, because we have a protocol and a system as it relates to safety and these kinds of issues.
That's so cool.
So it has to happen. It needs to be in your forefront, a conversation in your staff, in your board, in your own personal conversations with how you're leading the church. Like, it needs to be safety and security.
The last time you want to realize, the least best time you want to realize.
I'm tracking. Yeah.
The least best time you want to realize you need a system is when you need a system.
Is when you need it. Yep. Absolutely.
When you're like, oh crap, I wish we knew what to do right now.
Yes.
I wish we knew what step 3 was, or step 2 was, or even step 1.
Yeah,
in some cases.
And for the lead, like, it has to start with us. We're the ones that people are going to come looking at, going, what do we do? What do we do? Well, that's a lot of pressure in an emergency scenario when everyone's looking at you. Well, what if you had everyone trained and there was a system and a process? Now that pressure isn't solely on you. You've spread that out amongst your team, and they're responding the way they're supposed to. But that's a
lot of systems. We could talk about guest follow-up. We could talk about membership and discipleship. But when and how do we implement these systems?
I always say you need it before you need it. You need it before it becomes...
you know you need it, right?
Exactly.
So like we just said, that you don't want to know you need it when you need it. You need it before you need it.
Exactly. So if you're a church planter and you're kind of in that launching phase where you're gathering your team and you're doing pre-meets, look, now start creating systems now. If you're an older church and you're like, okay, we're behind the curve on this, the best day to start is today.
Yeah.
There needs to be systems, because like you just said, you don't want to get into a situation where, like, man, I wish we had something in place here and it's too late. So systems, when? Now. Do it now. Sit down with your team, sit down with your spouse, because that's usually the team is you and your spouse, and talk it out. What are we going to do? What systems are we going to create? But we got to do it now.
We got to do it now.
That's
and
right.
I would say this and encourage you that you don't have to create the perfect system right away.
Yeah.
You just need to create a system. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It could be a couple of steps, but document it and then reevaluate and shift. So you need them.
Exactly.
You need them before you need them. Get started right away.
That's right.
Steps in creating a system.
All right.
What
so
do we need to do?
I think I want to ask myself some questions.
Okay.
If I'm sitting down going, how do I create a system around this subject, offering, giving, safety,
This
kids?
applies to anything.
Exactly. All of them. I would say, number one, what is the end goal? Start at the end in mind. What am I trying to accomplish with this system?
Yeah.
If I'm trying to take up the offering, I want it to be safe.
We love this.
Exactly. I want my kids to be safe. I want my whatever. Start with the end in mind. So think through the end goal. Then begin to ask the question, who around me can help me accomplish this?
Okay.
Right. So you are inviting people. So just like I said, people aren't the system. People are part of the system, because that's the body.
Can't do without people.
Exactly. That's the body. That's the way God set us up as a church, is the body. So who can help me? Start making a list. And I do this. So this is a bonus. Circle, draw a crosshair in that circle, and I go, what does this need? What does this position or this role, this team, what do they need? And I write down, well, they need to be organized, they need to be creative, they need to be a leader, and they need to have a fun attitude. Well, if I don't have that in a person, which is very rare that somebody's superstar, and that's what we think, it's got to be a superstar.
Yeah.
I start going, well, Frank has this, and Mary has that, and Joan has this, and Sally has that. Boom, there's my team, and I pull them all together. But you have to ask the question, who can help you accomplish this?
I like that.
And then you got to go to the tool sets, like what tools are available in assisting achieving that goal, all the resources that are out there. Okay. So it's no longer, I don't know how, well, there's tools to help you now. Well, I don't know how to track my giving. There's tools out there. I don't know how to start a kid's, there's tools out there.
Yeah.
So now you start thinking through the tools. Don't start with the tools, because you may get overwhelmed with the tools.
Oh, yeah. Don't just go grab a tool because it's fun and new and shiny, right?
Right. Oh, when we first bought our database system as a church, I was like, this is too much. We only got 12 people. Like, we don't need all these bells and whistles.
Yeah.
All right. Now we've grown into that. But the idea at the beginning, it was overwhelming because we started with a tool. I would say go back to why you need to track people, the why, and then who can
what
help
you're
me,
gonna track.
and exactly what you're going to help. And then you start to bring the tools around.
What tools can help.
And then you go into the next one, which is how will I communicate this system to keep, how am I going to train this?
Yeah.
That's the next question in building a system. Because you can't just say, here's a system, go
do it.
Right.
Figure it out.
They need to be trained. We've all done this, the unpardonable sin of, I asked a volunteer to help in kids ministry. And I didn't train them.
You
they
just
showed
threw them
up.
in the deep end,
bro.
man.
I did, and they're like walking around going,
drowning.
I don't know what I'm doing,
or doing whatever they want to do.
Oh, worse.
And then you walk in and you go, "Why are y'all doing all of these things?
Yes.
Or why are you doing it that way?
Right.
I wish you. That's your fault.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that in detail in our volunteers podcast. But I would tell you our episode. But you have to bring training in a system. If people don't know the system won't function.
No.
You can expect it, but if you don't inspect it, it won't happen.
Sure.
So you have to train your volunteers, train the people, find some kind of way to organize it, a 3-ring binder, systems, job descriptions, all of that.
Yeah, Google Doc, anything.
Yes. And then finally, you got to come back and go, is it working?
Okay.
That's a good question to ask when you're starting a system.
Yeah.
Is it working?
Yeah.
And if it's not working, you tweak it. And again, because it's not a person, people are more open to the tweak of it. So you tweak and you hold.
Guys, we've been trying this. We've done this for a while. Man, look at our results at the end.
Yes.
Something's broke.
This is a little too heavy in policy. We can back this down, or we're not policied enough in this area.
Sure.
We need to tighten this up.
Yeah.
And then you hold the team accountable. This is our system. So when somebody doesn't follow it, you go, hey, we do this to protect you, right? Safety team. We do this to protect our kids. You bring them back to the
checks
why.
for, all this.
Exactly. So that helps as you deploy systems. Go back, check them out. It's okay to tweak your systems. They're not systems for the rest of the life, right?
No.
For the rest of the history of the church. Matter of fact, as you grow,
you're not writing anything in stone.
Exactly. As you grow, you're going to notice these systems have to give and take. So, but you got to inspect them, and then you can hold people accountable to them. And now you've got a system in place for all of the different areas we talked about.
It's important stuff.
Yeah.
I think this is really cool conversation. And if you only listened to this one episode and did some of the things that we talked about today, I think you will see growth in your church. Our theme, one of our major themes for this season is healthy things grow.
That's right.
And healthy things, think about a plant. You have a system for growing a plant, right?
That's
There's
right.
the proper soil and there's the proper amount of sun and then
It's got a root
of water,
system.
and there's a system in the plant itself, plus the caring for it system.
All of it.
All of those things, there's a system in place. So if you have some systems in your church, I guarantee you your church is going to grow.
Yes.
I know it will, because if you have a process for volunteers, if you have a process for finance, if you have a process for children, your church is going to grow.
Yes.
We believe it. We believe in you. We're praying for it. Hey, wherever you're listening to podcasts, we ask you to go ahead and subscribe us, rate us, review us, subscribe on YouTube. We'd love to have your comments on there. Post some processes you use in your church.
Absolutely.
Maybe some blind spots we might have had in today's episode. Some processes you've gone through. Maybe you've ditched and you've started over, and or you've simplified. Just, it's helpful.
Yes, I'm always looking for new systems. Better systems.
We don't know it all. This is just a conversation, and we'd love to have you a part of the conversation. Comment below. That's kind of it. Episode 5. Next episode, we are going to be talking about volunteer management.
That's right.
All about volunteers.
Yes.
And I'm excited to talk about that. The church cannot exist.
That's right.
It cannot operate without the whole body doing their part.
Yes.
Seen pastors trying to do it all on their own, and they burn out. They want to give up. They want to quit. That's because they don't. They're afraid to delegate for one reason or another. Maybe you're a control freak and you need to ask God to help you with that. But so volunteers, you have to have them. You can't do a church in a healthy way without them. That's episode 6 coming up next week. So that's it, Mike.
All right. Be blessed.
We'll see you guys next time on Hello Church, season 4.